The Stoics understood a truth that most people never learn. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can control how much access they have to your energy. Many people spend years trying to convince others to value them. They explain, complain, and seek attention. Yet none of these actions create respect. Respect often appears when you stop forcing it. When you withdraw your attention and focus on yourself, people begin to see your value differently. Let's explore the 9 emotions they experience when you simply ignore them. Comment: silence is power. Number 1. They feel rejected. A strange shift begins the day you stop giving attention to someone who has grown comfortable receiving it. And what makes it powerful is that you do not argue, you do not explain, and you do not try to convince them of your value, because your absence says what your words never could. And for many men watching this is where life starts teaching a lesson that no book, no friend, and no motivational quote can teach. Because when you constantly make yourself available to people who give little in return, you slowly train them to believe that your presence costs nothing, and anything that costs nothing is rarely respected. So when you stop reaching out, stop chasing, stop checking in, and stop making them the center of your attention, a discomfort begins growing inside them, because the pattern they depended on is suddenly gone. And what troubles them is not simply that you are unavailable, but that they no longer know where they stand with you. And uncertainty is something many people struggle to handle, especially those who became accustomed to your effort while offering very little themselves. And maybe you have lived through this scenario where you send the messages first, make the plans first, apologize first, and carry the connection while convincing yourself that patience will eventually make them appreciate you. But appreciation rarely grows from endless availability. It often grows from contrast, from realizing what life looks like when someone valuable is no longer there. And this is where many men make a mistake, because they think ignoring someone is about punishment, when it is actually about self-respect. It is about redirecting energy back toward your own life, your own purpose, your own growth, and asking yourself a difficult question: why am I working so hard to keep the attention of someone who is not working hard to keep mine? And that question alone has the power to change your future. Because once you begin examining your own behavior honestly, you start seeing patterns that have followed you for years. Patterns of overgiving, over-explaining, over-investing, and overvaluing people who have not earned such importance in your life. And this is where Stoic thinking becomes useful, because it teaches you to stop measuring your worth by the reactions of others and start measuring it by the quality of your own actions. And imagine a man who spends every day waiting for a text that may never come, compared to a man who wakes up focused on his health, his mission, his finances, his family, and his future. One man is controlled by external events, while the other is controlled by principles, and the difference between those two men becomes larger every day. So if someone seems distant, stop chasing explanations and start building yourself. Write down 3 goals that matter to you, break them into small actions, and execute them daily, because every hour spent improving your life is an hour no longer wasted seeking validation from people who have already shown you where their priorities are. And as this section continues, there is something even more surprising that happens after this first emotional reaction, something many men completely overlook until it is too late. Number 2. They feel your absence. An empty space speaks louder than constant attention ever can. And after enough time passes, people begin noticing not only that you are gone, but also what disappeared with you, because your value is often hidden when you are always present, just as people stop noticing the electricity in their home until the lights go out. And this is why many men become trapped in relationships, friendships, and situations where they are appreciated the least when they are giving the most, because familiarity makes people overlook what is right in front of them. And when your energy is removed, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. And suddenly, the conversations feel different, the routine feels different, the comfort feels different. And even if they refuse to admit it openly, something is missing. But before you focus on what they are experiencing, focus on what you should be experiencing, because too many men spend their lives hoping someone notices their absence while neglecting the opportunity to build a life worth returning to. And this is where your transformation begins, because absence alone is not powerful. Meaningful growth during that absence is powerful. And imagine two different scenarios. In the first scenario, a man withdraws but spends every day obsessing over whether someone misses him, checking his phone every hour, stalking social media, and living in constant anticipation. While in the second scenario, a man withdraws and uses that same time to improve his fitness, develop new skills, read, learn, build his business, and strengthen his discipline. One becomes weaker through distance, while the other becomes stronger through it. And the truth is that many men claim they want respect while avoiding the habits that create respect, because respect is often the result of consistency, discipline, boundaries, and self-control, not endless kindness without standards. And when people notice your absence, what matters most is whether that absence is creating a stronger version of you. Because if your life improves while you are gone, something remarkable happens. You stop needing anyone's approval to feel complete, and that freedom changes how you speak, how you walk, how you make decisions, and how you respond to challenges. And people notice that change long before you say a single word about it. And perhaps you have seen this happen in your own life. Someone leaves a toxic environment, focuses on growth for a year, and returns completely transformed, calmer, stronger, more confident, and harder to manipulate, because they have finally learned that peace is more valuable than attention. And the deeper lesson is that your absence should not be a strategy to make someone miss you. It should be an opportunity to rediscover yourself. Because when a man reconnects with his purpose, his standards rise, his confidence rises, and his tolerance for disrespect drops dramatically. And once that process begins, another powerful reaction starts emerging, one that keeps many people awake longer than they would ever admit. Number 3, they become curious. Nothing captures a person's attention faster than access being removed without warning, and the reason this stage becomes so powerful is because curiosity is often stronger than affection, stronger than attraction, and sometimes even stronger than regret. Because the human mind struggles to accept unanswered questions, and when you stop making yourself available, stop sharing every detail of your life, and stop offering constant updates, a question begins growing inside them that they cannot easily silence. What happened to him? And while that question sounds simple, it opens the door to dozens of others, because now they start wondering where your attention went, what you are doing differently, whether you have changed, whether you have moved on, and whether they misunderstood your value all along. And many men fail to understand how much of their power they give away by making themselves completely predictable, because predictability often kills interest. Not because consistency is bad, but because endless availability removes mystery, and mystery creates attention, which is why a man who spends his entire day chasing responses usually receives less respect than a man who is fully focused on building his own life, because one is communicating need while the other is communicating purpose. And purpose is naturally attractive because it signals that your world does not revolve around someone else's approval. And think about a situation where a co-worker suddenly quits a company after years of loyalty. People immediately start asking questions, not because they hated him, but because his absence disrupted the pattern everyone had become accustomed to. And the same principle applies to relationships, friendships, and social circles, because people become curious whenever something they assumed would always be there suddenly disappears. But this is where many men sabotage themselves, because curiosity begins working in their favor, and they immediately destroy it by reaching out, posting for attention, or looking for reactions. And the moment you start seeking validation again, you hand away the advantage created by your discipline, which is why one of the most valuable skills you can develop is learning how to sit comfortably with uncertainty, because while they are wondering about you, you should be investing that energy into your own growth, learning new skills, improving your health, strengthening your finances, and creating a future so compelling that your focus naturally shifts away from people who once occupied too much space in your mind. And ask yourself this: how many opportunities have you missed because you spent months thinking about someone who barely thought about you? How much progress could you have made if that emotional energy had been redirected toward your goals? And that question should hit hard, because many men are not suffering from a lack of potential. They are suffering from misplaced attention. And the moment you reclaim that attention, your entire life begins changing direction. But curiosity is only the beginning, because after enough time passes, something far more uncomfortable starts happening inside them, and this next stage forces them to confront questions they have been avoiding for a very long time. Number 4, they question themselves. A person's greatest discomfort often begins when they can no longer escape their own thoughts, and after the curiosity settles in, a deeper process starts unfolding, because the focus slowly shifts away from what you are doing and toward what they may have done wrong. And this is where the noise of everyday life becomes a problem for them, because distractions can only hide reality for so long before reflection takes over. And reflection has a way of exposing truths that people spend months or even years trying to avoid, because now they begin replaying conversations, remembering moments they dismissed, recalling opportunities they wasted, and noticing patterns they previously ignored. And while many men spend enormous amounts of time trying to explain their worth to others, real understanding rarely comes from explanations. It comes from consequences, because people often understand your value only after experiencing life without it. And this is why emotional discipline matters so much, because when you remove yourself from situations that continuously drain your energy, you force reality to reveal itself without interference. And perhaps you have experienced this yourself after leaving a toxic friendship or unhealthy relationship, where weeks later you suddenly see everything clearly and wonder why you tolerated so much for so long. And that clarity arrives because distance removes emotional fog, allowing you to observe events from a more rational perspective. And the same thing often happens to those who took your effort for granted, because now they have time to think about the messages they ignored, the promises they failed to keep, the respect they did not show, and the opportunities they wasted. And what makes this stage especially difficult is that accountability cannot be outsourced, because there is nobody to argue with, nobody to blame, and nobody available to absorb responsibility on their behalf. And this is a lesson every man should apply in his own life, because growth begins the moment you stop asking why people hurt you and start asking why you allowed certain behavior to continue for so long. And that question is uncomfortable, but discomfort often contains the lessons that comfort hides. Because when you examine your choices honestly, you begin identifying patterns that have followed you through multiple situations. Patterns of weak boundaries, fear of being alone, fear of disappointing others, and fear of losing people who were never fully invested in you to begin with. And once you identify those patterns, you gain the power to change them, which is why writing down your standards is one of the most practical exercises you can do, because standards force clarity, and clarity prevents emotional confusion. And if someone repeatedly disrespects your time, your effort, or your values, the solution is not endless patience. The solution is stronger boundaries, because boundaries teach people how to treat you, while simultaneously teaching you what you will no longer tolerate. And the men who transform their lives understand this deeply, because they stop negotiating with behavior that consistently damages their peace. And as this process continues, another shift begins taking place, one that surprises many people because the attention they once received effortlessly is no longer guaranteed, and that realization starts creating a completely different kind of hunger. And if those questions are hitting deeper than you expected, if they are making you look at your own patterns, standards, and decisions in a completely different way, then the Stoic relationship blueprint for men is linked in the comments, filled with timeless Stoic principles you can return to for life whenever you need guidance, clarity, or strength. And it is now available in audiobook format, so you can absorb this life-changing wisdom while taking a walk, training, driving, or going about your day. And because transformation happens through application, not information alone, the Stoic relationship Blueprint Course for Men is launching in July to help you build these principles into your daily life and relationships step by step. So comment Blueprint if you want early access and start building the version of yourself that no disappointment, setback, or person can ever shake. Number 5. They miss your attention. Few things are valued less than attention when it is freely available and valued more once it disappears. And this truth explains countless situations that leave men confused because they spend years pouring effort into people who barely acknowledge it, only to watch those same people suddenly notice its absence when it is no longer being offered. And attention is one of the most precious resources you possess, because unlike money, you can never earn back the hours you spend giving it away, and every conversation, every message, every emotional investment represents a piece of your life that can never be recovered, which is why wise men become extremely careful about where they place their focus. And when your attention is no longer available, people often begin realizing how much of their emotional comfort depended on it, because perhaps you were the person checking in, encouraging them, listening to their problems, supporting their goals, or making them feel important. And when that source disappears, they begin noticing gaps they previously ignored. And this is where many men need to learn an important lesson, because attention should be earned, not endlessly donated to people who show little appreciation for it. And imagine a man who spends every day trying to prove his value to someone compared to a man who spends every day increasing his value through action. One seeks recognition while the other creates results, and results always outlast recognition, because recognition depends on other people while results belong to you forever. And this is why personal growth becomes such a powerful response to disappointment, because every workout completed, every skill developed, every goal achieved strengthens your life, regardless of who notices, and eventually something remarkable happens. You stop viewing attention as something to give away cheaply and start viewing it as an investment that must produce value, respect, and mutual effort. And when you reach that stage, your relationships improve dramatically because you naturally begin surrounding yourself with people who contribute rather than consume. And ask yourself honestly, how many people in your life appreciate your presence only after you stop offering it? How many people contact you only when they need something? And how much energy have you wasted trying to maintain connections that survive solely because of your effort? Because those questions reveal more about your life than most men are willing to admit. And once you answer them truthfully, you gain the ability to make better decisions moving forward. And that ability becomes life-changing because it protects your future from repeating the mistakes of your past. But as valuable as attention is, there is another realization waiting around the corner, one that carries far more weight because it forces people to recognize the cost of choices they can no longer undo. Number 6. They feel regret. One of the heaviest emotions a person can carry is the realization that they had something valuable and failed to recognize it until it was no longer available. Because regret is rarely created by what happened. It is created by what could have happened but never did. And this is why so many people become trapped thinking about missed opportunities, missed conversations, and missed chances to act differently, because once time passes, imagination begins filling the empty space with possibilities, and those possibilities often become more painful than reality itself. And when someone looks back and realizes they could have treated you better, respected you more, communicated more honestly, or invested more effort, the weight of those realizations starts accumulating over time. And unlike temporary emotions, regret has a tendency to linger because it continuously asks a question that cannot be answered. What if? And while they wrestle with that question, your responsibility is not to rescue them from it, but to continue building a life that makes you proud, because too many men spend years waiting for apologies instead of pursuing progress. And progress will always be more valuable than closure, because closure depends on someone else, while progress depends entirely on you. And perhaps you know what it feels like to lose months or years hoping another person would suddenly change, only to realize later that your greatest mistake was not their behavior, but your willingness to tolerate it for so long. And that realization can either make you bitter or make you wiser. And wise men choose growth because growth converts pain into strength, disappointment into discipline, and setbacks into lessons that improve future decisions. And this is where Stoic principles become incredibly practical, because they teach you to focus on what remains within your control, rather than obsessing over what has already happened. And what remains within your control right now is your routine, your mindset, your standards, your actions, and your future direction. And if you commit yourself fully to improving those areas, something powerful begins happening. Your confidence stops depending on outcomes and starts depending on effort. And that shift changes everything, because a man who trusts his own discipline becomes difficult to shake, difficult to manipulate, and difficult to distract from what truly matters. And while regret may be growing in the minds of those who underestimated your value, an even stronger reaction is beginning to take shape, one that explains why people often return only after realizing they no longer have the influence they once enjoyed. Number 7. They lose control. A painful realization begins growing inside them when they discover that your life keeps moving forward without their involvement. Because for a long time they assumed they could step in and out whenever they wanted, reply when convenient, disappear when convenient, and still have access to your energy whenever they felt like it. But that assumption starts falling apart when they see that you are no longer waiting, no longer chasing, and no longer arranging your life around their choices. And this is where many people experience something they rarely admit openly, because what troubles them is not always losing a person. Sometimes it is losing influence over that person, and influence becomes addictive when someone grows accustomed to having it, which is why some people become uncomfortable the moment they realize their actions no longer produce the same reactions they once did. And perhaps you have experienced this yourself, where someone ignores you for weeks and seems completely uninterested until the day you stop responding, stop reaching out, and start focusing on your own path. And suddenly their attention returns, not because you changed overnight, but because the dynamic changed. And the dynamic changed because you stopped rewarding behavior that did not deserve access to your life. And this lesson is incredibly important because many men spend years unknowingly training people to disrespect them by rewarding inconsistency with endless patience. And every time you accept treatment that goes against your values, you silently communicate that your standards are negotiable, and negotiable standards create predictable outcomes because people naturally continue doing what they have been allowed to do. And this is why self-respect must be demonstrated through action rather than words, because anyone can announce their boundaries, but only disciplined people enforce them consistently. And imagine a man who constantly warns others about how he expects to be treated, but never follows through, compared to a man who quietly removes himself from situations that violate his standards. One depends on persuasion, while the other depends on conviction. And conviction always carries more weight because it requires no audience and no approval. And as your life becomes more structured, more focused, and more purposeful, something interesting happens. You stop trying to control other people because you become fully occupied controlling yourself. And that shift is life-changing because energy that was once wasted analyzing texts, guessing intentions, and worrying about outcomes becomes available for goals that actually improve your future. And ask yourself honestly, how much of your mental energy is currently being spent on things you cannot control? How many nights have you sacrificed thinking about someone else's choices instead of improving your own circumstances? Because every hour spent dwelling on what another person might do is an hour stolen from your own development. And once you understand this deeply, your priorities begin changing in ways that create lasting confidence. And confidence built through discipline is impossible to fake because it comes from evidence, from promises kept to yourself, from habits repeated daily, and from knowing that your life no longer depends on who stays or who leaves. And while this growing independence unsettles those who once assumed they would always have access to you, an even stronger emotion begins emerging as reality becomes impossible to ignore. Number 8. They fear losing you. Nothing creates urgency faster than realizing something valuable may never return. And this stage often arrives quietly at first because people spend a long time convincing themselves that there is still time, still another opportunity, still another chance to reconnect whenever they decide they are ready. But eventually reality starts challenging that assumption because days become weeks, weeks become months, and suddenly the possibility of permanent loss begins feeling real, and permanence changes everything. Because as long as people believe something remains available, they rarely feel pressure to appreciate it. But when availability disappears, appreciation often arrives all at once. And this is where many men make an important discovery about human nature, because people frequently postpone effort when they believe they have unlimited opportunities. And the same principle affects careers, health, friendships, family relationships, and personal dreams. Because many people assume there will always be another day to make changes until one day they realize they have already lost years. And this realization carries tremendous weight because it forces reflection about priorities, choices, and consequences. And perhaps you know someone who spent years taking their health for granted only to become serious after receiving bad news, or someone who ignored their ambitions for a decade before suddenly realizing how much time had passed. Because people often wait until the cost becomes visible before recognizing the value of what they had. And relationships are no different. And while others may be struggling with the possibility of losing access to you permanently, your focus should remain on something far more important. Building a future that excites you regardless of who participates in it, because fear should never become your motivation. Purpose should, and purpose creates a much stronger foundation, because fear depends on avoiding pain, while purpose depends on pursuing meaning, and meaning gives direction to your life when circumstances become difficult. And many men are desperately searching for confidence without realizing that confidence often grows naturally from purpose. Because when your days are filled with meaningful goals, meaningful habits, and meaningful responsibilities, you spend less time worrying about who is paying attention to you, and more time becoming the person you were capable of becoming all along. And this is why the strongest position you can occupy is one where your happiness is not controlled by another person's decisions, because dependence creates anxiety, while self-mastery creates stability. And stability is rare in a world filled with distractions, emotional impulses, and constant comparison. And if you can develop that stability, your life begins changing in ways that most people never experience, because you stop reacting to everything and start responding with intention, and that transformation becomes impossible to ignore, not only for you, but for everyone around you. And as this final realization settles in, the most important lesson of the entire journey begins revealing itself. Number 9. They realize your value. A truth that remains hidden during constant access becomes impossible to ignore once distance provides perspective. And this is often the stage where people finally understand what your presence contributed to their lives, because value is easiest to overlook when it becomes familiar. And many men know exactly what this feels like, because they have spent years supporting others, solving problems, offering encouragement, remaining loyal, and carrying burdens quietly without receiving much recognition for it. And while that experience can create frustration, it can also teach one of the most powerful lessons you will ever learn, which is that your worth does not increase or decrease according to another person's awareness of it, because value exists whether it is acknowledged or not. And a diamond remains valuable even if someone mistakes it for a rock. And once you understand this principle deeply, you stop begging people to see your value and start focusing on becoming even more valuable. And this shift changes your entire approach to life, because your energy moves away from proving and toward improving. And improvement is always a better investment, because proving depends on other people, while improvement belongs entirely to you. And think about how different your future could look if every ounce of energy spent seeking validation was redirected toward growth, toward learning, toward building stronger habits, toward developing skills, toward strengthening your body, toward creating financial freedom, and toward becoming a man whose life reflects discipline rather than dependence. Because that is where real transformation occurs. Not when someone finally notices your worth, but when you stop requiring them to notice it in the first place. And perhaps this is the lesson life has been trying to teach you through every disappointment, every unanswered message, every broken promise, and every situation where you gave more than you received, because each experience is pushing you toward a greater understanding of yourself, toward stronger standards, clearer priorities, and deeper self-respect. And once those qualities take root, something extraordinary happens. You become harder to manipulate through attention, harder to distract through temporary emotions, and harder to discourage through setbacks, because your identity becomes anchored in principles rather than opinions. And when a man reaches that stage, he no longer fears being overlooked, because he understands that his purpose is bigger than anyone's approval, and that understanding creates a quiet strength that changes every area of life, from relationships to career decisions to personal growth. Because for the first time, he is no longer asking what others think of him. He is asking whether he is living according to the standards he has chosen for himself. And that question leads to a level of freedom that many people spend their entire lives searching for, because true power begins the moment you stop chasing what was never meant for you and start building what was always within your control. The world profits when men stay distracted, emotionally dependent, and unaware of their true worth. So if you're ready to build unshakable self-respect, reclaim control of your relationships, and apply over 2,000 years of timeless Stoic wisdom that still works today, comment, "I choose discipline." Grab the Stoic Relationship Blueprint for Men linked in the comments, now available in audiobook format, so you can listen while walking, training, or driving, and like and subscribe to help more men discover these truths before they lose years of their lives chasing what was never meant for them. And one more thing, I'm currently finishing a complete course based on these life-changing principles and practical relationship frameworks that will be launching in July, designed to help you apply this wisdom in your daily life from day one, because knowledge changes nothing until a man decides to live it.